say, you know what? Let me get this straight. Hold on. So you're telling me this is a DVD that's going to be in the mail? You mean you got to wait for it? And like, that's bullshit. What are you talking about? You're totally full of crap. The economy was as hot as you can imagine. Every day the phone would ring. I worked at Adobe. The phone would ring and it was a recruiter. Hey, want to talk to you about this? Hey, want to talk every day? No, I'm not exaggerating. I swear to God, this is true. And so I would just say, hey, I'm really happy. No. Hey, I'm really happy. No. And I wouldn't talk to him. One day the phone rang and it was a recruiter who called from the 650 area code, which is northern, the peninsula in the Bay Area, 726 prefix. 726 is my hometown of Half Moon Bay, really small. So who the hell's calling me from Half Moon Bay? Hello? It was a recruiter. And I'm like, all right. Turned out she went to high school with me and she was 3 years behind. So we catch up on how's Dennis doing and how's so-and-so. And before you know it, after 20 minutes, she says, oh, I have this job offer I want to talk to you about. And so she tells me of this Netflix thing. Say, you know what? Let me get this straight. Hold on. So you're telling me this is a DVD that's going to be in the mail? You mean you got to wait for it? And like, that's bullshit. What are you talking about? You're totally full of crap. Because the DVDs, you go to the store and you pick it up and you look at it and you talk to it. It's a social thing. This is just bullshit. Good luck. And she said, I'll call you on Monday. Think about it. So I had a good laugh. I hung up. I went home. And here's the most interesting thing that happened. Over that weekend, as I'm playing this over, a little file opens up and this memory pops out. And this memory was a phone call I had in 1994. And that phone call in 94 was by a recruiter from Seattle who'd called me and talked to me about this idea of a new company that's trying to sell books over the internet. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Books on the internet? You got to go to a bookstore and feel them. It's a social thing. And I said, oh, wow, I missed the mark on that one. I don't want to miss the mark again. And that's what got me to Netflix.
That is insane. So when you got to Netflix, what were they thinking about, and how did you eventually reach the pivot from DVD to digital? Or am I missing a crucial point?
Yeah, and it's interesting. There's probably a lot of interesting points in there. There's probably one crucial lesson one that I'll highlight. But listen, Netflix was built by engineers and mathematicians. Okay, it was a bunch of numbers geeks, really technologists and engineers, and they were just brilliant. And so they'd look at data, like, look at this interesting slice of data, and look at this slice of data, and look at this slice of data. So they were looking at data in a vacuum, which was fine, the way engineers do. When I saw that, I said, you know what's interesting is not this slice of data. I want to go across all of them. I want to understand the customer across everything. And it gave me the opportunity to do that to an extent and with pure data that I'd never had in my life. And so that, I just geeked out on it, man, right? I just geeked out at what I could do with this data. So that was exciting, helping them connect these dots, not just, wow, look at this, look at the orders data. Well, screw the orders data. The orders data only matters relative to Eli or Olivia or Emily or Patrick. Like, it's got to be a person and their story. And what did they do before? What are they doing after? And that's what I brought to them, which was just exciting. Now, let me tell what I think is probably the first important nugget about Netflix that really isn't talked about a lot. When I joined the company sold DVDs and it rented DVDs. It did both. All right. And 95% of the revenue came from sales. Why? Because you got to go back to when many of you weren't born or you were walking around in diapers. When DVDs started, they were like $1,000, the players. And so if they're $1,000, penetration in household basis is really small. So I just bought top of the line $2,000 DVD player. I'm ready to watch DVDs. Let's go to Walmart. Oh, Walmart doesn't have any. Let's go to Blockbuster doesn't have any. There's no content anywhere. Why? Because no one has the goddamn players, right? So we sold a lot. And if you're dropping $2,000 on a player, you're probably a cinephile. You're a collector. You want to own them. You want to buy them. So we sold them. 95% of revenue came from DVD sales. Okay. Now, this is the aha moment. This is it. We realized that as prices dropped, more people would buy them. As more people bought them, these retailers would now stock inventory. Not those VHS cassettes, remember those? They'd stock DVDs. We could not beat Walmart on economies of scale, could we? We could not beat Best Buy on economies of scale. So the future was not sales. And if we tried, we would not win. The future would have to be figuring out rental. Now, we don't know how. We don't have a line of sight. We didn't come up with the subscription model, but we knew sales is out, so stop it. So what did we do? Overnight, we stopped it. We ripped the plug on 95% of sales overnight. Why? Because if Andy's an engineer working on DVD sales, you know what Andy's not working on? He's not working on the future of the company. The future of the company is not sales, it's rental. If Patrick's working on biz dev on sales, he's not on the future of the company. So how do you do it? You rip the Band-Aid off, you take the pain, and you work your ass off even harder. And that's what we did. So again, just think about kissing 95% of revenue goodbye overnight. Who would have the strength to do that? I don't know, I would, but we did. And it worked. So when you have a big, bold decision, when you have the future mapped out, you put all resources at it. Anything that's not future oriented, it's going to kill you.
Was there any times during that transition or after you pulled the plug that people had doubts about it? Like, I'm sure that there was at least a moment where you guys were kind of like, all right, maybe we shouldn't have done that, or, you know?
Yeah. I think I'll step back from the question about the 95%, and let me just answer it this way. And again, I'm happy to dive in if you want.
Okay.
I think from the day I joined in August of 99 till the day I left, October 10th, 2006, I had doubts. We were a public company. I had doubts. You have doubts every day. And in fact, you know what's so good about your question is you're actually bringing like nugget number 8 up early. Do you know what Netflix's secret to success is? Besides its focus on the customer, it acts like a startup. It has doubts every day. Even now, 9,000 employees, 26 billion in revenue. You know what? They don't rest on that at all. No one frickin' rests on it. And so they have doubt even today. But at the time, yeah, we were scared shitless, man. I had a mortgage and 2 babies. What am I going to do? We better make this thing work. And so you know what's a great motivator? Fear. Fear. Again, I'm not saying you should manage teams with fear, but my point is the prospect of failing and losing to those a-holes in Dallas, that Blockbuster, no way, we're not ever going to do it. And in fact, it brings me another little anecdote which relates to this. In 2001, before we went public, we were hanging out in Santa Barbara at this ranch. We took the whole company to this dude ranch for a week, and we just, enjoyed ourselves. So we did that for a whole week. Blockbuster called and they said, we'll take a meeting now. So a bunch of executives rented a Learjet, hopped on it, flew to Dallas, met with the executives in the boardroom. At that time, again, hey, good to meet you. Niceties. What do you have in mind? Well, we think maybe we would be good to run kind of this future DVD thing. Why don't you buy us? Great. What's your price? $50 million? To which they laughed, right? They laughed. Buy Netflix for $50 million. Take a look at the valuation now, folks. So they laughed. So here's the fun part. As Reed and Mark walked out of the room and they boarded the plane, everyone's kind of quiet. Everyone feels a little deflated. They're going back to Santa Barbara. We're just partying. And Mark looks to Reed and he goes, you do know what this means, don't you? And Reed says, what? And he goes, we have to kick their ass. And that's what we did. So true story. Everything there is true.
I've never heard that. I can't believe I didn't know that Blockbuster missed out on this deal of a lifetime. It reminds me of like when Yahoo tried to be sold for like $5 billion and then they missed out on that one.
Yeah. There's a part 2 to that if you want me to tell you quickly.
Oh yeah.
Here's the part 2. So 50 million by Netflix. They said no. So we go to battle. Fast forward to 2006, right? So 5 years later, they have created a competitor to us. They have created the Blockbuster Movie Pass, unlimited rentals in store or online. Whoa. They took their biggest weakness, store, and they made it a strength, right? It was a killer program. One flat fee. You could get it online in the mail, return it to a store, pick one from the store, right? You could do whatever you wanted. It was great. They were gaining on us. We were growing. They were gaining really quickly, really quickly. It was scary. So we went to them and we said, you know what? This is an interesting program you got going. You clearly have made good luck out of your strength. Why don't we buy that business from you and we'll run it. We'll keep it branded. We'll run it for you. Guess what they said? They said no. So, okay, great. Hubris, arrogance made you ignore us. Arrogance made you say no to 50 million. Arrogance made you say no to whatever offer that was going to be. And where are we now? They're gone, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, that's part two. We could have saved them twice. Let me rephrase that. They could have saved themselves twice. They didn't do it at all, and they're gone.
And there is one remaining Blockbuster store, right, in Oregon?
One.
Do you think that Netflix will ever do like one store or like a pop-up shop
That's
to
what
like
I was
to like
thinking.
mimic them? Because I think that would be an incredible business play for them.
Well, funny you should ask. You got me on a good night here. This is good. So we actually did. We did a store. We did one store. It was called Netflix Express. It was I feel like an old man. It was the summer of like 2003. All right. And so this is a great story about experimentation. All right. This is a great story. You guys have good questions. Like you're unlocking the good shit tonight. So we had this idea that you could create a kiosk, right? And you could stock and staff a kiosk, a vending machine, if you will. And we could put them in Starbucks or CVS but we could do that. And we could connect it to the internet so that you could reserve one at that store and pick it up and it's reserved for you. And so the internet would be connected. And we thought, wow, that could be really a good physical distribution outlet to mirror and go hand in hand with the online version. So that was the vision. By the way, sound familiar? What does that sound like?
Redbox, is that what it's called?
Yeah, Redbox.
Yeah.
Who, by the way, Mitch Lowe, who joined me on this adventure, became the CEO of and grew that to 40,000 boxes. Okay. So anyway, before Redbox, he was with us. And the thought was that this would be a compelling complement. So how do you test it? Do you go and build the box and install them? No, that's not testing it. That's called doing it. No, that's not what we did. What we thought was, you know what would mirror that behavior? What could mirror that behavior? If you had a kiosk, what would be similar to that? Well, a store. Yeah, it's probably true, but a kiosk is 24/7. Well, let's make a store 24/7. So here's what we did. In a Kroger in Las Vegas, Nevada, we struck a deal with them. A dry cleaner was leaving that Kroger. So some of these monster Krogers have like a dry cleaner in them or a bank or this or that. They had a dry cleaner. The dry cleaner left. So we took it over and we built Netflix Express. And it was an unlimited for flat fee. You could come in 24/7. And by the way, 3 a.m. in Las Vegas, you see some weird shit, I got to tell you, right? But you come in 24/7, one flat fee, rent as many as you want. Got it? Kind of like a kiosk, isn't it? Mm-hmm. We created a kiosk by creating a store to learn whether or not it would be financially viable. And the answer was no, it was not financially viable. Too many turns, too many rentals to make the unit economics make sense. So instead of engaging with NCR and doing this whole prototype R&D stuff on a new kiosk, we identified what's the key assumption, turns, number of rentals. We then figured out an experiment on how to figure that out without building any code or any technology. So we did have one store for 3 months.
That's very interesting.
And it was an unbelievable 3 months. It was great.
I bet. Was there a lot of press on that?
No. That's the thing, man. Check this out. There's no press.
Advertised the shit out of that because that's amazing.
No press. Nothing. Listen, the last project I worked on was streaming, or at the time in 2006 was our version of streaming, which actually evolved into, it was a box attached to a TV, Roku. So the last project I worked on became Roku. Anyway, I was interviewing, I interviewed and did discussions with 800 people in 4 days in 4 cities, right? And in there, bringing them into big stadiums, showing them a video, having discussions, getting data from them. And I told them at each and every time, and this is 2006, listen, you need to sign an NDA. You can't talk about what we're talking about. And guess what? No one talked. I thought for sure Netflix is working on a box for streaming, was going to hit the press, the blog, something. Nothing.
Left it
Do you
to
think
them.
that would happen today?
No way.
No way in hell that would happen. You couldn't conduct that kind of research. So, that was like, anyway, no one talked, even with the Netflix Express. So it's even hard pressed to find any press on it now, but it happened. It really did.
So Dr. Meyer, you
Hit me.
mentioned to me earlier that Netflix had 6 different mini pivots. So what were those 6 pivots involved?
That is great. Do you mind if I pull up a slide from my last conversation? Would that be okay?
Of course.
Please do.
Actually, you know what, if you don't mind, before I show you the slide, what do you think the pivots were?
I'm gonna let them answer.
Pivot, unmute your mic, guys. And
Yeah. Olivia, you're laughing. Give me a pivot. What was the pivot? Netflix was this, and then it was this. What do you think the before and after was? Andy, there's somebody behind you. You know that, right?
Yeah, it's my roommate.
All right, good. I thought maybe you're going to be attacked or something. So
I have one. So in the past, you guys said Netflix literally ran like DVD, and then do people pay each time when they rent it? So now it's a subscription. You have to pay each month.
good. So that's one pivot. Well done. That's one. A la carte to rental. A la carte to subscription. That's a pivot. Excellent. What else?
Did you
DVD to
ever-
digital.
Oh, so we'll go ahead.
DVD to digital.
So like streaming?
Yeah.
Yep, that's 2. Good. What else?
Did you ever did Netflix ever sell anything but like TV shows and movies?
Sell, you said?
I mean, like for rent.
No.
Okay.
No. I put a business case together on why it should do video games and why it should do porn, and both were rejected.
Why?
Video games, because there's no shelf life. None of you are playing a video. How many of you are playing Madden 2011? No one.
Honestly, like a little bit. But like,
What? What?
But you will watch a movie from 2011 because it was a great movie, right? So that's one on the video game. On the porn, our CEO was president of the California Board of Education, appointed by the governor, and he just said, "Look, if you all feel as though it's the right thing, do it. I'm going to step down." And so we said, let's not do that.
Yeah.
So that's why.
that makes sense.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty smart. All right, other pivots? We got 2. Anybody got any others? Randy, you got another one?
Yeah. So in the past, I know Netflix only rent out movies. Now Netflix make their own TV show and movies.
All right. You picked up a third one. Excellent. It's a good one. What else we got? Anything else?
You mentioned earlier moving from sales to renting.
Okay. That was the first big pivot. So you're doing better than most any other conversation I've had. Most people don't get it. They go, "Oh, DVD to streaming." Yeah, those are the simple ones. Thanks, Brainiac. But you guys you're getting them. This is great.
Maybe a better algorithm for user input.
So that's kind of a constant underneath the whole time. So that doesn't represent a kind of a step function shift, Alex, but that's a critical point worth billions of dollars per year, but that's a constant. That's a constant, not a pivot, but it's important. So thank you for bringing that up. Olivia, go ahead.
Not sure if someone said this before, but putting it all online basically instead of having any physical aspects to it.
Okay. No, that wasn't said. And here's the other thing. Anyway, thank you for playing. I think it's great, but that hasn't happened. There are 4 million people getting red envelopes right now. You go to DVD.com, you can rent DVDs from Netflix. Like, who knew? When's the last time you saw a red envelope? But they're there. All right, let me show you my slide. This is great. You all are crushing it.
You're crushing it.
I don't know about that, but thank you.
What about like multiple screens, like having a family plan or something?
Family plan. All right. Well, let's see what we have, okay? First and foremost, online DVD sales and rentals. We kind of hit that, right? Andy, I think you nailed that one. We went from that to just online rentals only, a la carte, one at a time, right? And then the model became subscription rental. And then the one that none of you got, and you probably won't remember, episodic content. Now, this is not streaming episodic content. This is a shift in what you watch. So you all are familiar with the concept of binge watching. That's where it came from. And here's the story behind it. We were in battle with Walmart and most importantly, Blockbuster. You know, who has more movies? Who has more of this? We're going to the studios. What do you got? What do you got? I want to have a bigger count title than Blockbuster. And so we're all trying to get movies because all you rent is movies. No one rents freaking TV shows. Who gives a shit about that? They're on reruns. But over in the corner in the warehouse are all these DVDs for movies. And we said, well, we really need more content. What do you got? And they said, well, we have all this, you know, Sanford and Son and Barney Miller and All in the Family and Friends. So like, no one's buying it. And they were like, well, we'll take it. Why? It helps our count. It helps our count. So we do. It's dirt cheap. I mean, like dirt cheap compared to movies. So we put it on the website and people start renting it. All right, so they rent it. The algorithm, as Alex said, rendered it in front of me and voila, we rent it. But here's the weird thing. You rent it and then it shows up a day later. Like I got it and I get it back to Netflix in a day, which means one of two things. Either, what the hell did I order? This is absolute garbage. Not what happened. Or, Olivia, here's your redemption. Or what happened?
You watched the whole season in
You
one
watched
night.
the whole thing in one night. Thus, binge watching. Binge watching came from episodic content on DVDs. At one point in time, episodic content was more than 50% of what was rentals. Your behavior changed. Got it? That's a jump. From there, it went to streaming. From there, it went to original content, right? 2011, House of Cards, $200 million, David Finch. And from there is the future. Local original content, which means that currently in 40 countries, Netflix is making content with local stars in local culture, with language, right? It's all local. The most successful TV show in Mexico, not Mexico Netflix, not Mexico TV, Mexico, is a show called Club de Cuervos, right? Club de Cuervos. And it is about a Mexican soccer team. Now, it's a fictitious soccer team. It doesn't exist, all right? But it's about a family business, a patriarch and his two children who are fighting for control over it. And you have these stars who one's a Lothario and one is a devout evangelical Christian and all their funny things that happen. And it's freaking great. I was in Mexico last summer teaching and I binge watched 6 series in 3 weeks, 6 seasons. Now, you know what the number one selling Under Armour and Nike product were in Mexico last year? Club de Cuervos jerseys for a team that doesn't exist.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty far out. So
Cultural change. Netflix is actually a cultural impact.
across the world in local context. That's the cool thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, and let me put some numbers to it. When I joined the company, 1999, 4 million in revenue, less than 10,000 customers. This year, 26 billion in revenue, 195 million customers. So not bad, huh? Not bad. All right. What else we got? We're coming up on 8:30. I'm happy to go a few minutes later if you all are. Don't have to at all, but if you want to, we can keep going with a few more questions.
Should we go to their questions?
I think there is some interest for more questions. So I know Alex has a question. So Alex, you want to go ahead and ask?
Yeah, of course. Just backtracking a little bit. You said about the Band-Aid like ripping off to create advancements and stuff like that. Do you think there is in present day Netflix a Band-Aid that you should rip off to boost production or like a new side of Netflix that people would find? And you were talking about the continuous algorithm for user-friendly software, and I guess that's partially part of my question too. So
Is there anything now that would be equivalent to that we should rip the Band-Aid off and kill at Netflix now?
yes.
You know, I'm going to disappoint you, Alex, and say I'm probably not close enough to really have an opinion about it, to be honest with you. I could look at some content and go, what the hell did you build that for? Like that's crap. But here's the thing. There's 195 million users. Even if 5 million people like it, it pays for itself. It's brilliant. So, you know, the worst I can do is some content that I don't happen to like, but guess what? I don't watch it. So who cares, right? Yeah, I'm probably too far removed, to be honest with you. But if I can, let me answer your question, and let me answer your question through another lens, maybe another example. All right, another example, which I think you'll find interesting. So, we had how many of you are entrepreneurship innovation minors? All right. How many of you have taken the class or plan to take the class Managing Innovation? Okay, good. So Managing Innovation is a class that I teach every other year approximately. And in that, we teach you about design thinking, which is really important. It's critically important, right? It's just a wonderful, wonderful tool. When we made new product ideas, new products at Netflix back in the day, we had a hybrid, right? We had agile design thinking and lean and stage gate, all without any, those labels didn't exist. There was no design thinking at the time. There was no agile, but this is how we operated. We had a scientific method based on testing and exploration and consumer feedback. And so we were doing all these things without the labels. So there was a new idea we had, Alex, that pertained to how, you know, here's what we wanted to fight against. We did not want people to come to Netflix and rent new releases, okay? We wanted to fight against that. Why? Because new releases cost us half the revenue. Half the revenue had to go to Hollywood on a new release, okay? So if I can get you to rent a movie 6 months and 1 day old versus 5 months and 29 days old, I keep all revenue versus give you half. You with me? So it's in our best interest to find for you the best content. And if it happens to be under 6 months old, we're going to show that to you. Got it? Okay. So, Emily, who's the best source of movie recommendations for you? Where's the most quality, consistent source of movie recommendations for you?
People in my same target market and segmentation, me.
Friends and family, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Aren't friends and family a good source of movies? Right? I can look at reviews, but reviews are for freaking everybody. I don't care about that. If Stephen Newton, right, my friend in San Jose, says you got to check that out, then I'm dropping everything, and that's Friday night because he's dead on. All right. So we introduced this idea called Friends, Netflix Friends, which is on the Netflix platform. Emily, you and Olivia can connect, and you and Randy can connect, and you can see what you have in each other's queues. And you can make movie recommendations. You can share reviews. Like, what a great source. I just watched this. It'd be perfect for you, Alex. So we built this, right? We ran through the testing and we built it out and we launched it. So here's the thing. We had a process, 5 phases. Before you can get on the website, there are 5 phases, right? Today you'd call that validation. I hate that word, right? It's nails on a chalkboard to me. So I'm happy to talk about that later, but 5 phases. And if you get to the last phase, it's called beta or pilot. You go to the site and you get 10% of the customer base. We cordon off 10%. And for 1 year, you have 10% of the base to play with. And your goal is to get adoption to 20% on that new feature. Got it? A new feature. If after 365 days of all of your efforts, all the resources of marketing, all the resources of product marketing, all the resources of engineering, if you do not get it to 20%, Alex, we rip it out. So literally at day 366, if you're at 19.9%, guess what we did? I'm not exaggerating. You killed it. Why? Because you had a full frickin' year to hit the milestone and you didn't do it, which tells us there are going to be other ideas that are better that we have to spend our time on. So, well, just give them another month to play with it. You had 12 months. Bullshit. Let's get on to the next thing. So we'd rip the code out, right? Code is gone. And none of you ever saw Friends. And Friends essentially is Facebook. We pre-Facebooked Facebook and we pulled it out because it didn't hit, at the time, it didn't hit that level, right? And I still think it was the right decision, because if we allowed 19.9, then Randy's going to want 19.6. And allow 19.6, Emily's going to want 19.1. And now we're in 10%. And now we got a bunch of bullshit on the site, which isn't good, right? So that's how you instill in the development process Band-Aid ripping all year long. Got it?
Netflix puts out a lot of original content, right? Some of it hits and some of it misses. A lot of it I feel misses, for me at least. I don't really like most of the shows that happen on Netflix, but I like the occasional show, and that's what keeps me on the platform. But I've been seeing online that a lot of people are upset with Netflix because some of their favorite shows, which are good shows, end up getting canceled because they don't get to say the numbers that they want. Do you think Netflix should focus on creating fewer high quality shows, or should keep pushing out a lot of shows and throw a lot of darts and see what sticks?
Yeah, it's a great question. So your question, in my mind, there are two parts of that. There are two parts of that axis. On one side over here, right, is you're making a lot of cheap, shitty content. Okay. Now, I could probably show you the economics that say for the $800,000 I spent on being Netflix on that comedy special in LA, right? For whatever up and coming star that you and I don't find funny, that $800,000 probably turned into $5 to $10 million for them. And in no world is that a bad decision, right? Okay. So I think that at the individual level, most of them pay out. I would venture to guess. But I'm with you. I scroll through there and I'm just like, this is shit. There's nothing here I want to watch. By the way, Queen's Gambit, brilliant. Just brilliant on Netflix. You should totally watch Queen's Gambit. Now, what's the other side? So if you and I can agree that for them, making this cheap content makes economic sense. On the other side of the spectrum are you and I, or everybody, which is if all you make is cheap content that's obscure, you're not making any good big ones. I'm gone. You better make a Queen's Gambit. You better make The Crown. You better make House of Cards. You better make Orange is the New Black. You better make Club de Cuervos. So they're going to have to find a balance. And I think they found a balance, right? So they can do, let's just do the math. If I do House of Cards, $200 million is what they paid for the first 2 seasons. I could do 400 cheap ass comedy shows and I know they'll pay out. If I spend 200 million and it's a miss, I lose, right? So I think they're going to find a portfolio, a balance. Ozarks, people watch Ozarks? Ozark, great show. If you don't watch Ozarks, go. Olivia, what are you watching, man? You're like smiling. You got to watch some of these shows. They're brilliant.
I watched The Crown. I love that show.
Okay, I couldn't get into it, but that's okay. But you liked it. It's good, right? Queen's Gambit, check it out. Like I'm on episode 5 tonight. So anyway, great question, Anthony. But I think it's going to be. They have to continue to find a balance. If all you see is cheap stuff, it creeps into your mind. Maybe I should go, right? So that's the risk they run if they do too much on that side. If they do too much, only big hits or try for them. If they miss, it's far more expensive. So we'll see. We'll see. Time will tell. Any other recommendations for shows as I go into a weekend? Anybody? Anything?
I have a non-Netflix show I can recommend.
Look, I got Hulu. I got like 6 services, so I have them all. What is it?
Have you heard of Ray Donovan?
Yeah, absolutely, on Showtime.
Yeah, I feel like it fell off in the last 2 seasons, but the first 4 were incredible.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing. I appreciate that. It's one of those on my list that I know I'll get to, but this will help kind of push it up a little bit. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Hey, Dr.
Real quick.
Alex, yes?
The League on Hulu. If you haven't already seen that, it's so funny.
Guess who introduced his kids to the League? This guy. And It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. So my kids are out at UCLA and UC Berkeley kind of, oh, look at all my knowledge in this show, and people love them for introducing them to the League. Yeah, it came from their old man. It's freaking great.
Such a funny show. I love him.
Chalupa Batman. How creative is that for a name of a baby? Isn't that a great name for a baby? Chalupa Batman. I think I'm off topic here, folks. I'm sorry. All right. Anyway.
Fire. One thing I want to ask, I'm dying to ask, and you can make it short if you don't have any time, but my question is, how valuable is Netflix's algorithm towards its revenues and user growth? Because I'm sure that they've been coding a better algorithm every single year. How helpful do you think it has been? How valuable do you think it is?
Yeah, so there was a New York Times article that quantified that a couple years ago, right? And so I'm going to be in the range on this one. So forgive me, Julian, but it's probably responsible for 10 to 15% of sales of revenue. Back when they were about 10 billion or so, the article came out and said that they have ascertained that they drive between $1 and $2 billion of increased retention, right? Showing you shows you'd like, therefore you don't leave. That I'm going to give full credit to that, to the algorithm. So it is, it's extraordinarily valuable, right? A single item driving 10 to 20% of value, like that's something you cherish and you really, really cherish. In fact, I think you mentioned to me that you and Eli mentioned to me that you're going to do an interview with Neil Hunt. Is that right?
That's correct. The chief product officer at Netflix, guys.
Yeah. So Neil Hunt is the guy whose team came up with that, was responsible for that, developed that. You're going to meet the guy, the brains behind it. You can ask him all about it. But yeah, it's extraordinarily powerful. So on that note, listen, this is a thrill for me. I thank you for your interest and your engagement.